well be, right? I know. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Plaistow Board of Selectmen meeting for February 22nd, 2021. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6:35 p.m. Beth, may I have a roll call, please?
Select Chair, Ms. Hart.
Here.
Select Vice Chair, Mr. Talion.
Here.
Selectman Mr. Kiszka.
Here.
Selectman Mr. Glenn.
Here.
Selectman Mr. DeRoche.
Here.
And note for the record, joining us remotely, we have Mr. Pearson, Town Manager, and Mr. Colby, Finance Director.
All right, thank you. Would you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Before we get into the rest of our agenda, I have to read our disclaimer. The Board of Selectmen, in accordance with Governor Sununu's Emergency Order Number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, is authorized to meet electronically. The Board of Selectmen is utilizing GoToWebinar program of the GoToMeeting platform for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during the meeting and throughout the GoToMeeting program, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen to the meeting as well. The link to the meeting is provided on the town website, and the public may call in for comment at 603-382-5200, extension 290. You can watch the meeting on cable TV on Channel 17, or you can live stream the meeting at livestream.com/Plaistow. If you'd like to make comment or ask a question by email, please email Beth Hossack at plaistow.com, and questions and comments received by 3 p.m. on Monday will be read at the meeting. All right, so with that, I'd just like to ask for a motion on the floor to approve the minutes of February 8th before we start our public meeting.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes of February 8th, 2021.
All right, thank you.
The motion.
Second the motion. Okay, was there any discussion on the minutes at all?
There was a change from the ones I emailed you on Friday. On page 2, I highlighted the change.
Yep.
I just wanted to point that out.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for highlighting it, too. It's nice and easy for us to just jump in
That's my
on
change.
there. All right. So if there is no further adjustments to the minutes, I'd like to take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, opposed? Abstain?
I abstain.
Okay, that motion carries 4-0-1. All right, so we have two public meetings tonight. The first public hearing I'm going to open at 6:39 p.m., and it is regarding the sale of town-owned property. And I believe in your folders you have several communications from our town attorney, Sumner Coleman, with respect to the sale of this property. And so before I take public comment regarding that, I'd like to turn that over to our town manager, Mr. Pearson, if he is available to do that, and just very briefly explain what the process is, if he could do that.
Yes, can you hear me?
Thank you, sir. Yes, yeah, we can hear you.
So in your package, you have 3 memos, but I'll be speaking about Rose Ave and Canterbury Forest. Town council and I have reviewed the land to make sure that we were in compliance with law on offering town-owned property or sale. And these 2 properties meet that test. And this will be the first of 2 public hearings. And after tonight, plan on submitting 2 properties to Conservation Commission and the Planning Board for their review and recommendation, and then conduct a second public hearing in the future.
Okay. So are there any questions from the board? Julian?
Yes, last meeting, we decided to take Hale Spring off the list because it was implied that there was some holdup about the title. Now I'm reading this from Sumner Coleman. It looks like there is no holdup. Am I reading this correctly or not?
Well, as I stated at the last meeting, the property is complicated by some legal issues that have to do with easements and the future use of land. So I just put that on hold right now because we were focusing on these other two. But it's not a simple sale of town-owned land because there are some questions about if the town can even sell the land, because one of the things that was mentioned in the town acquiring the property was that it would be used for town use only.
Yeah, I was expecting
don't-
that, sorry to cut you off.
That's all right, go ahead.
Okay, I was expecting that if there was problems, that it would have been on Sumner's memo, but it's not. So I was just, that's
No,
why I
because
was
it's gonna
asking.
Right, it's gonna take a considerable amount of work to get through some of the technical issues. So because we were moving forward with the other two pieces, and I was the one that brought this up, thinking that this property would have been easy to do, that's the reason why I suggested taking it off, because it's not as easy as the other two properties.
All right, thank you for the answer.
Yeah, and I believe our board had a discussion on this at our last meeting, and we did make the decision to pull it off
It was
of the
based
sale.
on what the town manager just said. But I
Exactly.
didn't see that written in some of the calendars, so I thought maybe it had been cleared, so
Well, it
that's why I
says
asked.
here, it says, "We understand a decision has been made not to proceed." So I guess that answers all of the questions. So, Dean, are there any other people that are online that may have questions with regarding this public hearing at this point in time?
We have nobody.
All right, so if there's no, is there any further discussion or questions or anything from the board? Because if not, I am going to close this public hearing at 6:42. And I will open the second public hearing, which is a grant consideration, and we are very fortunate enough to have our fire chief here, Chief Knudsen, who will come up and give us a little bit of information on this public hearing. Thank you for coming in, Chief. That was really nice of you to do.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So last year, we applied for a competitive grant from the Department of Justice, New Hampshire Department of Justice, to be able to staff the fire station at night, which we were successful in getting for $126,592. That grant expired December 31st of 2020. Because of the way the budget process is and not knowing if we would be able to sustain those funds through the warrant article, which won't be voted on until next month, I authored a request to the Department of Justice asking them to extend that grant to the end of March, and was able to articulate the need for that. And they notified us saying that they were willing to extend $28,420.28, which will offset the cost of having staffing at the fire station until the end of March. In case that warrant article does not pass, you know, we won't be behind in the budget. Well, I did not want a gap from the end of December until March of not having people there because of the significant impact it's had on the community. So it was nice for them to extend that for us so we could continue those services. And what I'm asking for tonight is the same thing last year, to accept the grant, but to grant the town manager, Mark Pearson, a certificate of authority to be able to do that and
To
accept
extend the
those
grant.
funds. Yes.
Okay. All right, great, great. Does the board have any questions for the chief? No? Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
Just great job going.
I
going
know.
out and Getting those grant funds. So
You've made an
excellent.
extraordinary effort to try to garner every and all bits of money that you possibly can for the town, and you've been very successful at it, too. I'm going to have to talk to you later about fixing my mortgage maybe
Well,
sometime.
I wish I could figure that out, you know, so.
But we do very much thank you for your effort and your diligence and your willingness to just jump in with both feet and help the town out with some revenues that we may not ordinarily have had. So with that, I am going to turn it over to the public, and before I ask Dean, who is not here right now, but I don't believe there's anybody online, a request came in from Mr. Ty Vitale this afternoon with a question on this public hearing. I'm going to read you the question that he had. Hi, Beth. I have a question for tonight's public hearing on the grant acceptance. Could you read it for me? And how will these CESF funds be used to prevent, prepare for, or respond to the coronavirus? Many thanks, Ty. So I just reviewed the original documentation from the grant application, and it says, and I quote, and hopefully this will be a good answer for you, Ty, quote, the purpose is to increase staffing from a quote, unquote, call to a quote-unquote paid status from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. We do have the paperwork available at Beth's office, so if you would like to review the paperwork, you're more than welcome to do that. I suggest that you set up a meeting so you can come down and she'll have it ready for you, but that is the basic outline of this grant application. So if there's no one else online to speak regarding this? No, and did you have a question or comment or anything? No? You guys are all set? Okay, so may I have a draft or a motion to, which is also in your packet, to approve this supplemental income?
To accept the coronavirus emergency supplement funding grant of $28,420.28 from the State of New Hampshire Department of Justice, and to authorize Mark A. Pearson, Town Manager, to sign the certificate of authority relating to the grant. The grant has been awarded to assist the Plaistow Fire Department personnel by improving the safety, health, and wellness of the firefighters and community, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic.
All right,
I'll
thank
second
you.
that.
All right, and Julian, okay. Okay, if there's no more further discussion, I will call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? All right, so that motion carries 5-0-0. So if there's no further discussion, thank you so much, Chief, for coming down. And I'm going to close this public hearing at 6:49 p.m.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, stay safe on the nasty roads out there. All right, so our next item agenda is the investment policy review, and I believe in your packet you have a copy of the investment policy for the town of Plaistow. And we are required as a board annually to review and approve this investment policy, and I believe our finance director, Mr. Greg Colby, is here to talk to us a little bit about that. So Greg, if you can jump in, I would very much appreciate that, sir.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Good. Yes, in the packet is the investment policy, and as you stated, Madam Chair, RSA 41-9:VII requires the annual readoption of this policy. Given the very limited options that the town has to invest there aren't any changes in the New Hampshire RSA, so there's not really any need for a change to this investment policy, which was written a couple of years ago and modified and brought up to date at that point, but readopted by the board last year. So, and again, this covers basically the funds that are what you would consider to be in the custody of the town treasurer. So the general fund, the water fund, and the like. It does not apply to the cap reserve expendable trust funds, nor does it apply to the public library funds either. Each one of those two entities are required to do their own policy and adoption separately. So if you have any questions, I can entertain them at this time.
Okay, go ahead, Julian.
I have a question. There's a little something different this year. I don't know if it was looked into, but apparently the Timberlane School District, the town of Plaistow is supposed to be in charge of their investments.
Yeah.
And I don't see anything in here that covers that. And it's something new because we haven't had that before. I do have a copy of the investment policy that the Timberlane School District has, which is policy code DFA. It's only 2 pages, and it basically, they also say that their board has to review this once per year. But even in theirs, I don't see any place where it says they can delegate their funds to be taken care of outside of their own treasurer to a town. So I just don't know if you've looked into this at all, since we're apparently supposed to be responsible for it.
That's part. Can I answer?
Sure.
The Timberlane Regional School District took a vote, I believe, at an annual meeting either a year or 2 ago to switch custody of their trust funds. Does not have anything to do with their general operating funds, but their trusts, they have expendable trust funds, they have scholarship type trusts. Though the custody of those funds now reside with the town of Plaistow's trustees of trust funds. So this policy would not cover any of those funds. Again, it would be under the trustee of trust funds policy that they would adopt separately and shouldn't be of a concern here.
So does our trustee of the trust funds actually make the investments, and how is that covered under our policy?
Again, it's not covered under your policy. The trustees of trust funds have their own policy. And yes, they are responsible for the investment of those trust funds.
Julian, you look confused. It's a separate entity
I know,
from
it
what,
just confuses me why it's being done in the first place. If it's still controlled by them, why are they turning it over to a town? So it does kind of confuse me. Maybe offline you can explain it to me.
State law does not account for school districts holding trust funds. By state law, all trust funds, with one or two exceptions, I know the city of Keene is one of them, but they all have to be in the custody of the town trustees when it comes to expendable trust, capital reserve, or scholarship type trusts. They go to the town trustees. It's in the RSAs.
okay, so does that answer your question? It's a separate,
Kinda, sorta.
it's a separate thing.
Yeah.
So I don't want to put you on the spot, Greg, but could you tell us how many extra or how much extra revenue that you have garnered for us by your wonderful management of this investment policy?
Well, with COVID and the dropping of the Fed rate, the bottom has dropped out of the investment market. So we're somewhere earning between 0.1% to 1.5, 0.10 to 0.15. So this past year has been a tough one from that standpoint in 2020. So.
All right. Are we also allowed to invest in CDs and treasury bills as long as they're less than a year? And is that even worthwhile to do at this point?
CDs, yes, and there's not much difference in the rate between what we're getting right now from our two primary modes of custodians between the public deposit investment pool and the local bank that we utilize. It's hundreds of percentage points difference.
Okay,
It's not
all
a whole big difference right now.
All right. Go ahead, Jay.
I have a couple questions. So the investment policy itself, since this is my first year, is this basically the same policy that carries over year to year? Without
Yes, it
any
is.
significant changes? Okay.
That is, yep, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. One, I looked at some other towns and just was looking at their investment policies. One of the sentences I found in our policy that I didn't really see in any of the other towns, it's on page 2, and it's under the section 5, risk and prudence, the second paragraph. And if you go to the second sentence, it's investment officials acting in accordance with written procedures and exercising due diligence shall be relieved of personal responsibility for an individual's security risk or market price changes, provided deviations from expectations are reported to the selectmen in a timely fashion and appropriate action is taken to control adverse developments. So I didn't see that in a lot of other towns. I was just curious where, and I didn't see it in any RSAs that I could find. I was just curious where that came from. Is that just legal?
I'd have to review, where the policy, from year to year when it was adopted and where that came from.
Okay. I was just curious. I didn't see it anyplace else really. So, so basically that means if, I guess let me ask you this, who is an investment official?
That is primarily the treasurer, and the treasurer has the authority to delegate that process. But I work hand in hand with the treasurer And again, it sounds like it's language that is very ominous, but if you go to state law, the only things you can invest in are the public deposit investment pool and banks. And as Madam Chair, I think you could get into short-term treasuries, but it's just because of the immediate cash flow needs that we see, it's not worthwhile to even look into things of that nature to tie that money up because, you know, as you know, May, June, we're down to next to nothing. Same thing in October, November. So it's, you know, very, very short term and it's very limited because of the fact that it is short term so that towns aren't losing money by taking, you know, more risk.
I just have one more
Yep,
question.
go ahead, go
And
ahead.
it's more for the public's knowledge. Who is the appointed treasurer?
The appointed treasurer is Catherine Davis.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
And I believe the whole mission statement of the investment policy is to preserve principle. So regarding that little statement, I would guess that if anybody was going to engage in, quote, it's almost like you can't engage in risky behavior. But if there was a situation where the banks collapsed for some reason, I think that would be the situation where we would need to be notified as a board that we may be losing principal. And I'm guessing that that's why that little caveat was in there, and hopefully that will not happen. But, you know, if the banks go under, we're not going to be the only town that's going to be in trouble, so.
No, it
yeah.
was, in the research I did, I didn't really see that anywhere. I was just curious.
All right,
That's all.
and
Thank you.
you're awesome for doing the research. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Greg, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Let me, I mean, you point to the banks being in trouble. I mean, the banks aren't in trouble, but we do have a stopgap measure over and above the FDIC, whereby we have separate letters of credit and the like that would cover the town should anything, you know, unforeseen happen along those lines. So there's an extra layer of protection above the FDIC.
Good. And go ahead, Julian.
Yeah, just one quick question, so pretty much a yes or a no. As far as the portion of the funds that the town is holding for the SAU, the investment decision, is that made by our designee or their designee? Who's actually making the decision where the investment goes? I understand the town holds it, but who's making the decision?
The trustees of trust funds,
Our trust.
the town's trustee of trust funds.
Thank you.
All right, any more questions or comments for Greg? And in the past, when we have had wonderful returns, you know, Mr. Colby has brought in hundreds of thousands of dollars literally into our town in extra revenue by his very prudent and excellent management of these funds. So I personally want to thank you so much for doing that, and I know you're always looking out for our town, so thank you, Greg.
You're welcome. Thank you for the kind words.
All right, okay. Hold on, before you leave, Greg Talon has a question
Oh, I
or
don't have a
comment?
question.
Oh, all right,
I have a comment for you.
okay.
Do we have an official one that we're going to sign, or do we need to pass one of these around and have it signed?
I believe, Beth, you have one and one only that we should sign, and we can do that maybe after our meeting if
That's
you'd
fine.
like to do that.
That's fine. Thank
Okay.
you.
All righty. So we're ripping through our agenda really well tonight. That's great. Our next item agenda was the appointment of track members, and I'm not really seeing anyone here because I didn't ask for them till 7:45. So if we could skip down to the DES permitting for landfill cap. Mark, if you would be so kind as to walk us through that, that would be great. Thank you.
Yes, so along the way, I have informed the board that there was some permits that we were waiting for at the DES, and we received that. And then there was one outside one from Fish and Game that did not have a timeline on it, which not having a timeline really left us hanging. But this last week, we did receive the permit from the Fish and Game with some conditions, and the conditions are on the contractor to incorporate the conditions of the permit into their plan and into their construction. So we do have in hand all of the permits necessary should the warrant article on March 9th for the landfill cap construction be approved. So we're all set to go.
Excellent, okay, excellent. So does it, board have any questions for Mark at all? No, no, all right, so we will move on to our next item agenda, which is to approve an updated right-to-know request form. And I'm going to ask Beth if she would be so kind as to kind of walk us through that particular adjustment and just explain it just a little bit. It's a minor change, but I think it streamlines everything for people. So Beth, if you wouldn't mind just telling us a little bit about this request information?
Sure, we actually made it just a little bit simpler, just to keep things a little bit easier, a little bit smoother on the town's end for completing the requests. That's really,
Okay, yeah, it looks pretty clean cut, and it's already been obviously approved by NHMA and is in compliance with all the 91A regulations and rules. So do you want a formal vote on approval for this? Would that be the board's pleasure, or do you want just a consensus to approve this paperwork?
either one, whatever the board likes.
How do you feel, board? Do you want a formal vote or consensus?
Consensus is, I think, might be fine.
Consensus, yeah, I think consensus is fine. Are you guys all set with that? Yeah. All right, Julian, you good, and Jay? All right, so you have a board consensus of 500 that the new right-to-know request for information form has been approved as of tonight. Okay. So,
One comment, Madam,
pardon?
could I make one comment?
Absolutely.
I just want to give accolades to Beth because she's the designated person when somebody requests documents, and as you know, she's been quite busy doing that and working with our town attorney. And to that extent, you know, she's been exercising her knowledge in this area and learning a lot of the ins and outs on 91A. And the fact that there's been a lot of requests has actually helped her, you know, brush up on that 91A, and she's keeping some good records. And I think even Selectman Talon reviewed some of her work to see how she keeps track of it. So I just wanted to shout out to Beth that she, you know, and let the board know that she does a great job with this. And, you know, her and I work closely together on this, and she's really doing a good job. And this is evident by what her suggestion is here tonight.
All right, yeah, thank you. All right, thank you for doing that, Beth, yep, absolutely. All right, so we cannot postpone this any further, and from what I understand, the appointments for the track members, apparently, the track members are not planning on coming before the board for appointments, so there are signature appointments in your folders. And just for the record, I do want to go on the record to, first of all, thank all of these individuals for taking the time and the effort to jump in and to participate in community service. I'm going to read the names out to everybody. First one is Isabel Gautreau. The next one is Marianne Lacasio. The next one is Robert Kincaid, Kelly Fox, and Deborah Espars St. Louis. And so we normally tell all of our appointees that not only is it an honor, but it's a responsibility. And we do, as a board, expect you to show up at all of your meetings and to contribute and to make a difference in the town. And I have no doubt that you will all be able and willing to do that. You have your work cut out for you this year. And I'd like to turn this over a little bit to Jay so that he can explain a little bit further, because he was really the spearhead in getting this revived again. So, Jay, if you don't mind, just explain a little bit about your expectations for this committee.
Yeah, so in the initial, when this group first got together, outside of a small group on Facebook, they started having meetings about what they could do to, you know, get involved with recycling and trash, and a lot of them wanted to join the track committee. So we have the 5 folks, which thank you very much. I'm looking forward to working with you all. And I think what our expectations would be to, would be to help with recommendations on the upcoming trash and recycling contract throughout the year, education with recycling, other ways to, you know, reduce, reuse,
Yes.
to help cut down on your trash or your carbon footprint. So there was a charter for this committee originally. There were some suggested changes made. I sent that out to the board. So hopefully at our next meeting, if you guys have any recommended changes, we can get them all into a draft and help ratify this updated charter and send them on their way. Mr. Pearson was kind enough to kind of outline some dates to shoot for as they're going through their process and coming up with recommendations to the selectmen for the trash contract. So I'll relay that information to the committee as well. And I'll stay on. Hopefully I'll get reappointed to that committee when, after the election, so.
Okay, good.
And I think Julian's expressed interest on being the alternate as well, so, or being part of that committee, so.
Excellent,
And it was
excellent.
a good meeting, because I went to the last one. Matter of fact, most of my suggestions are already in that list of suggestions.
Go ahead, Greg.
Just a question to Jay. I looked at the track document that he created. He did a great job really covering a lot of different bases. And one of the things that came out very significantly was also an effort to reduce the volume of trash, which I was kind of surprised. It was like, how do you do that? How was that accomplished when people have the same amount of trash all the time to get rid of it? How does that come about?
Well, one of the things people can do is composting.
Oh, okay.
I
Already do that?
You know, a few years ago, when we had a garden in our backyard, we had a worm composter, so we'd put eggshells and lettuce, vegetables and all that kind of stuff in there, and over time, it really helps reduce the amount of trash that we were putting out at the curb as well, but the worm composter was only so big, and you could only put so much trash into it, so there are other types of things like that out there that you can get, big tumblers, where you can put large amounts of it and reuse into different, into a garden or your potted plants or whatever. So that's just one way. I'm sure there's other ways we can investigate to help
Thank you.
reduce that. There's, with everyone being home, we have all this packaging now, and it's, that's a big one to tackle, but maybe they'll find some ways to, or some good ideas on how to reduce that as well, so.
Good, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Do you have any idea on when you would hope to have your first meeting?
I was going to reach out to the folks tomorrow and try to plan a meeting. Also, Mr. Pearson provided DVOS to assist us with
Yes.
taking notes and facilitating, getting the meeting minutes up on the website and, helping with that committee, so.
That's going to be very significant
yeah,
in
she's-
getting work done.
She's a great resource
Yep.
to have, and she'll be a very, very valued contributor, so.
I'm sure she will be, yep, that's right. Well, again, thank you for tackling this project, and go ahead, Julian.
Yeah, I think that composting, you look at it a different way, is you're taking some of the good minerals and organics and things that, instead of ending up at a landfill, you're returning them back to the soil where the nature and things will use it again. The other thing is, it's not just, we live in a society now that people throw things away rather than fixing them too. And so some of the programs they may suggest down the road is bring stuff in where people might, something you would have thrown away, someone may want to take it and use it. So it's like you always just throw something away because you want to get something new. And that's kind of how society has evolved. It wasn't like that in the old days. We fixed everything. People don't fix stuff now, they throw it away, but it could be useful to somebody else. So they do have exchange programs in some communities where you bring the stuff in and other people will take it. And that way, that reduces trash too.
And we do have a Savers Club in town, which is a huge resource for recycling things that are not necessarily needed as well. So there's a lot of different options that, you start thinking creatively, and great ideas spring from each other's ideas. So I think you guys are going to have a very positive impact and outcome on this, and I look forward to seeing how you guys decide what you're going to do in the coming year. So that's great. Go ahead.
Just one last comment that I'll make known to the board. One of the suggestions I gave to Jay was to consider involving a member of the budget committee, one this particular committee is attempting to save money for the town and still accomplish a needed service. And I think it's really important that when we have an opportunity, whether we ask somebody to be on the committee or whether the committee goes to the budget committee and provides education of what they're actually doing to provide the service at the least cost. It's a really great opportunity to share information, and hopefully we'll have a fairly new budget committee, as we're going to have 3 new members, and we'll have 2 vacancies that they'll be filling. So there's 5 new people coming on. So that would be a great opportunity.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
It's a great
too.
idea.
Excellent idea. Okay. So if there's no more further discussion regarding this, soldier on, sir, and keep us posted on all of this stuff. And I am going to move on to the town manager's report. If you are ready to do that for us, Mark?
Yes.
Thank you.
Get that out. Package here. Okay, I'll go through pretty quick. So Beth and I have gathered use of town-owned facilities policies, and I understand that Selectman Talon has a policy for the board's review. The Chandler Ave Fire Suppression System abatement, we're waiting on some clarification so we can bring that abatement to the board. There was just some corrections that needed to be made to the 2 buildings over there. It's a minor adjustment, but nonetheless, we're going to bring the abatement to the board. I contacted our vendor that keeps track of all of our in-house mapping, and they're updating a map that would include all the water line mapping and all of the, the water tank and the new lines put in the street and the pump house and so forth. We're in the process of the East Road Pump House public notices that are required by law because of impacts to wetlands. And we're in our period of public comment, and that's until March 25th. And then there'll be a second notice following the comment period. We're expecting that the pump house will go out to bid because the state takes care of the bid in the RFP process in the spring. We are scheduling interviews in-house with staff and our engineers, and we've tentatively scheduled one for the week of the elections. We're not sure if it's going to be on the 9th or the 11th, and it would be to interview the 2 likely candidates for consideration for the board. And we're going to bring those candidates to the board, but we wanted to ask some technical questions before we come to the board to get some answers ahead of time. We've been in meetings with the state and our engineers about the quality of the water. There's some nitrification issues that happen in the warmer months, and everybody's experiencing the same type of deviations in the quality of the water. So DES has contracted with an outside agency to research and recommend some solutions. So we're part of that process because we want to make sure that the quality of the water is exactly what is expected. So we'll have a monitoring process, and we'll also have a site at the pump house to make the necessary adjustments for the quality of our water as it enters into Plaistow. I have reached out to the vendor on the trash carts, and he and I have been playing telephone tag and email tag, and we're getting ready to meet or talk about not only the delay of the 96-gallon carts and fill him in about what's happening here, but also to perhaps start a discussion about what's available for recycling. So we're going to just keep all of our options open at this point, and I will look for the track committee and the Board of Selectmen's input on this before I'm not going to make any decisions without the board bringing it to the board. You just took care of the track committee appointments, and I did make some suggestions on timelines. I think time is very critical because if we're trying to get a contractor to be on board for January 1st, there's a lot of steps in the process that have to happen. And I don't think that you can expect a contractor to get a final decision in, say, mid-December to just start in 2 weeks. I think there's a lot of considerations that the contractors have to make, or a lot of arrangements they have to make, whoever would be the successful person. So the sooner that we can get the process to RFP and get it out there and get the results in and bring it to the board for the decision, the better it's going to be for both the town and the contractor and the residents. But remember, we're faced with a January 1st, 2022 implementation. So as long as everybody keeps that on their radar, I think we'll be good. I did have a conversation with Brian at Casella Waste because they were part of the discussion of the last RFP process, and out of fairness, I wanted to advise him that we were going in a different direction right now, and that if they chose to be part of the future process, we would include them on the RFP. And he understood, and we'll make sure the RFP is not only available to him, but every other trash contractor in the area. One of the complaints we did learn from some other people is that they didn't know about the trash RFP process, and there was an expectation on their part, but no obligation on our part, that we were going to chase down people to be aware of the RFP for the trash contract. But I think in light of the fact that that happened, we are going to chase down people in this process. We are going to make sure that we send packages out to every trash vendor in the immediate area and beyond, so that we are reaching out to as many people as we can. You saw that with the landfill, where we received, I don't know if it was 7 or 8 vendors that participated in that. And of course, you get some favorable pricing when you have a lot of competition. So we're going to do that. I spoke to you about the landfill permitting tonight, so I won't repeat that. Right to know requests are increasing again. Selectman Talon had asked me, and I think it's actually a good idea, if we could identify in the legal budget and extrapolate out the right to know requests. So I'm going to meet with Greg, and we're going to just create another line item within the category of the legal that would give you an ongoing rolling amount of how much is being spent for legal and how much is being spent for right to know, so that we can track those costs. And then for future budgeting purposes, we can break it down into legal and right to know requests. The sale of town-owned land is on my report next. We've already talked about that. We're going to make sure we go to the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board next, and then we'll come back to the board. The BTLA case, there was a meeting that was scheduled, but then it was rescheduled, and it's going to come before the board in non-public on March 1st.
And just to
The assessing
interrupt-
project, I am working with our town attorney and our expert in the area, expert witness, and we're working on seeing if we can get a proposed resolution and bring it back to the board. I signed an agreement today with DTC lawyers after the board gave me the authority to do that a couple meetings ago about representing the town with the negotiations. So the current Comcast agreement is going to remain in effect until a successor agreement, and the town will continue to receive all of the previous negotiated revenue, so there'll be no impact to the town. The solar panel phase 1 contract review has come to a completion. All of the suggested changes by a town council have been implemented in that agreement, and that was for phase 1. So if phase 2 gets approved, we're just around the corner on March 9th, we'll just simply add the phase 2 into the phase 1 and combine them both into one contract, because the intent would be then that they would install the solar panels, both phase 1 and phase 2 at the same time, and would just do it with that one contract, or at least the same contract language. If there's 2 separate contracts, that's fine, but we'll make sure that the language is the same. And that was to protect the town. and the coronavirus point of distribution, because phase 1 and phase 2 have been delayed, it pushes out phase 2A and 2B. And from what I'm hearing, phase 2A and 2B, which would be the part where the Southeast Central Health Network would use the Plaistow Public Works Garage, would be pushed out to the latter part of March and into April, and probably last until May or even beyond that. So I will keep the board informed as I know any updates on that. And then my last comment is that the candidates night for March 2nd has been scheduled, and they've met with the Public Works, with Dana, and everything's all set to happen on March 2nd. So I'd be happy to answer any questions from the board at
Mark,
this
do you know
time.
what time the candidates' night starts?
Off the top of my head, I think it was 6 o'clock.
6? Okay. And I'm guessing that's going to be on the town website so people can attend as well.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions or comments for Mark at this point? Go ahead, Jay.
Mark, just a question on, under the water operator contract review and interviews. I don't know if it's appropriate, would you be providing us with like a resume of the candidates that we can
sure.
review prior?
Sure, absolutely. So our plan would be that we'll give you all 3 of the people that returned the proposals. But I can tell you that 2 of them, price was almost identical, and the other one was substantially more. But we're gonna put it on a spreadsheet, and we're gonna explain the differences and show the differences. And we would be giving the board the whole package ahead of time, like I give you information now ahead of time. And it would, surprises for the board. We're just trying to get to some technical issues, and one of the technical issues I want to get to the bottom of is the software. And the software is when they read the meters, and what we don't have software for the water department now, but we have BMSI, but it's not able to be easily transferred from the 2 vendors that we're talking about, because they both use the same type of meters and meter reading. So I don't want to go and purchase a module that is not going to be compatible. So that gives you an idea of, I'm trying to iron out some of these things ahead of time before it makes it to the board. And then everything will be on the table. And I have told the vendors that they can expect to come before the board and be interviewed by the board subsequent to us doing a preliminary interview.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments for Mark? No? Okay, thank you very much, Mark. Next item on the agenda is the action item review, and we will be addressing a couple of those on our next meeting agenda on March 1st. You guys have had your signature folders all passed around. I believe everybody signed off on them. So I'd like to call and see if there would be any selectmen reports. If anybody would like to contribute to what they've done over the last couple of weeks. Go ahead, Jay.
I did attend a rec commission meeting, and the rec department's been busy planning and having different events. So they have reached out to the outdoors organization that is, they're trying to work with them on facilitating that project. They're meeting with local Boy Scouts to talk about potential Eagle Scout projects out at the new trails. For February vacation this week, they're doing a movie at O'Neill Cinemas up in Epping. So it's going to be up to 30 people can go, and they'll have the movie theater themselves and be spaced out appropriately. Baseball and softball is well underway. Opening day is scheduled for May 1st. There are clinics scheduled for baseball starting 3/13. Softball is 2/21. Registrations remain open for people that want to register. They currently have 76 kids signed up for baseball and softball.
Wow.
So that's more than
amazing.
last year at this point. Oh, I'm sorry, 76 kids signed up for baseball and 26 girls signed up for softball. So
Amazing, that's great.
that's excellent. For Valentine's Day, some of the seniors in town received a little gift packet from the Elder Affairs Committee, just a little Valentine's Day treat that was given to some of the seniors. Easter activities, there's talk of a Easter egg hunt around town. That's still underway and to be determined. And Bill, are they doing the Easter Bunny around town again, or? No, okay.
No, that's too bad.
So that's not on there? Yep. So they're gonna bring eggs to residents' homes. Summer rec is being organized right now, and that's in the works. Also, summer concerts are being organized and scheduled. And the pavilion is being used for multiple things. Cub Scouts, Pollard, 5th grade lip sync. A couple of dance schools around town are using it to do their dance recitals in June outside, which is nice. And then, they're doing stuff over school vacation, and they're planning something for Earth Day as well. So that's all kind of coming down the pipe. So a lot of activity from the Recreation Department.
Good. So it appears that COVID-19 has not affected them in a negative way. They haven't skipped a beat in their creativity and getting all of these, activities done despite COVID is really amazing. So that's great. So kudos to the rec department. Yes,
So
excellent.
that's it. Just one more thing. Mark, I don't know if this is something you already have available, but I'd be interested to see if you could put together a packet of the organizational chart and the different job descriptions and roles within town that include, full-time stipend positions. And I was just curious, as being the first-year selectman and maybe the incoming selectman, it would be a nice thing to be able to look at and understand the makeup of the organizational structure within the town. And I was just curious if you have a packet, or is that something that can be put together?
Well, we don't have it together now because there's been some combining of jobs since the last time we did it. We can look at what we had before and update what we had before. I'd work with Laurie on that. But again, the substantial changes are the people that have taken on more than one job. All the previous jobs exist. The only changes we've made is to give more responsibilities to the same amount of employees. But yeah, that is something that could be updated. But that's up to you and the board if that's something that you collectively want me to do.
I don't know, is that something the board would like to see?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I think it's useful. It could be useful
Yeah,
for
it'd
town
be
report too.
Very useful, okay.
Yeah, and you obviously might want to wait until after elections to move that forward, so the new board will have that.
Yeah, we can, I don't know, Mark, how long do you think it would take to put something like that together? A couple months?
Well, I mean, I think a couple months is
that enough
being
time?
generous. And I would try to put it together before a couple months. I think I could probably get it together within 30 days. We would just research the document and update.
All right, excellent, thank you.
Okay, anything else, Jay?
Nope.
No, you're good. All right, Greg.
Okay. So the Cable Committee has two initiatives going on right now. The first is to partner with the library to continue the outdoor movies. So we're looking at, we put a lot of investments last year, both in the Public Works garage as well as in this hall here. So we don't think we're going to have any major expenses. So for the cost of this event, it's fairly modest, but we partner with the library and make it a little bit more reasonable for them. The second initiative is that we have a local artist who has done a number of paintings of local town locations, and we are looking to utilize those paintings as backdrops for the Channel 17
Good idea.
TV station. So right now, we're trying to make sure we have all the legalese taken care of, and we're working with Sumner to be able to address that.
Yeah.
The other item that I worked with Beth, I just kind of had an idea of when I was looking for the JRM contract, and I had nowhere to look. I didn't have no idea where to find this. So I finally bumped into Lori, and she says, oh, Susan can send it to you. So Susan sent me the PDF. And then it just came to me that I had other people asking for copies of this. So I asked Beth, do we keep the contracts? They're all public information. Do we keep them? She says, oh, yeah, we have on one of the drives, we have 2018, 2019, 2020. And each one of them probably has somewhere between 10 or 12 contracts inside of them. So we talked about how would we put that up on the web to make it available to the public. And I thought it would be nice if someone's asking about a contract through Right to Know, it would be another location for them to point to. So this kind of opens up the possibility of looking at other types of information that people are asking questions for and put them on the website in an area that people can go to and say, oh, there's the information. I would ask the board for their input on this. You know, one of the thoughts that Beth had was to put the contracts under the Board of Selectmen
Yeah, that would make sense.
item. And if there are other ideas or other types of information we have, please offer that as well. We're doing a really good job on all the town reports, and we're having those electronically stored. We hope to have some of them copied, the ones we are missing. And once we get those copies, we'll have issues from like 1952 all the way to 2020. So that's kept me a
Tremendous
little busy.
project, but very exciting and worthwhile to do, and I think that will really take a lot of pressure, hopefully, off of Beth, as opposed to, you know, calling her and asking her for this information. So thanks for doing that. All right, Julian?
Well, I already talked, I attended the trash thing. We already talked about that.
All right.
I had an Rockingham Planning Commission meeting this month, and that's pretty much it.
Has there been any more movement on the traffic calming from the RPC? Because I know you're on that committee.
Nothing really happened this month
No?
on that.
Okay. No? Okay.
Nothing.
All right, thanks. And John? Have anything for you? Okay. Just for me, I attended my very last planning board meeting last week, and planning board is fairly quiet as of right now. We're kind of cleaning up some old things and said goodbye to everyone, and appreciated all the work that they did. And so I believe Julian had requested a non-public meeting. So if the board has no other business for tonight, I'm going to adjourn our meeting at.
I have to go into non-public first.
Yeah, but let me make sure that people know that we will not be going back to a public meeting once we go into non-public, okay? So go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to request to go into non-public under RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, A, public employee.
Okay, may I have a second on that,
Second.
please? All right. All those in favor? Roll call?
Ms. Hart,
Yes.
Italian,
Yes.
Plaistow,
Yes.
Mrs. Glenn,
Yes.
Mr. Roche.
Yes.
All right, so we will now end our public session at 7:35. Our meeting will be adjourned, and we will now enter into non-public session. All right, and we're already there, so.